last time we played. Oh, we going big. We going big. We going hard. Retribution. And so it goes. Rosa entered the room with a tray of pastries and a pot of tea. Her duties were finished and she was allowed a bit of free time. She thought of accompanying Catherine for today. Okay, so we went back in time. She thought of accompanying Catherine for today's piano lesson. Cath, do you want some tea? The girl didn't look her way. She continued to churn out the bitter, melancholic sound from her piano. Rosa sighed, her shoulders slumped in defeat. She placed the food on the table. She sat on the stool beside the piano, twiddling her thumbs while her friend continued to stew in her foul mood. Is that a new composition? It sounds nice. Nowadays you make a new piece every day. It's a shame they're all so sad. Catherine didn't reply to that, but when she spoke again, her words were bitter. I saw them again, those degenerate louts. Oh! So, okay. Finally. God, okay. I really was like, who's Catherine earlier, and this is Catherine, and I don't know why I didn't put two and two together. Cool. We're gonna pretend I'm not a moron. No shame at all. Cath. Alright, consenting damn adults and all that. At least have the decency to close the door. Sometimes I dare say that they want to get caught. When I walked in on them this morning eating each other's faces, they had this look on them, like they were daring me to say something. Do they want my applause? Very nice technique, sire. I very much like the way you swap your spit with my sister. Great tongue action. Oh my god. Legit me. Très marvelous. And he even has the gall to speak to me? Be a dear and put them on the table, Catherine, he even said. Like I'm a soft-headed giggle mug of a maid. He wanted me to get annoyed, I just know it. Well, I am. Catherine turned to the tea and pastry, stuffing the buttered bread in her mouth. Easy there. These damn things. These damn delicious things. She said the last part angrily, as if she blamed her troubles on the food's relish. Rosa giggled in spite of herself. Catherine wiped her mouth in mock anger. What are you laughing at, wench? It's almost comical to watch you eat when you're angry, Cath. You're like a giant monster that attacks defenseless towns in horror books. Oh, yes? Catherine made sad tiny squeals and picked up another piece of bread. No, please spare us! She adjusted her voice and boomed out a roar. The Cathnarian monster of the deep doesn't show mercy to anyone! She dropped it in her mouth and chewed savagely. Yum, annihilation is delicious with tea. Oh my god. The two girls giggled. Catherine's rare smile turned into a rueful laugh. And soon Rosa felt her mood turning somber again. What happened anyway? Aren't you annoyed by it too? Sister has changed ever since she started helping in the chateau. Now it's all Gilly this, Gilly that. As if she wasn't already married. She doesn't even care that people are talking behind her back. They're calling her a two-timing slut now. I'm tired of running around picking fights with gossipers. She hasn't even visited home for a long time. Father misses her a lot. He always asks about her. Father had worked so hard all these years just to give us a comfortable life. Now he's sick and all she cares about is that dastardly Marquis. Rosa shrugged. I am a little bit annoyed, but I guess I've gotten used to it. Their lives are their own, Cath. She didn't dare divulge more than to Catherine, but it was partially true. I like Gilly. He's a nice friend. But I love my sister. If they want to stay together, then why not fix this and have at it? But what irritates me to my damn snatch is the way they are with each other. Catherine recently found the use of expletives endearing in her speech. Rosa hoped it was a phase. Oh my God! She really is having a lot of fun with these words. They're effing miserable. Any half-wit can see that. Yes, I've told Emily time and again to smarten up. But as if she would listen to her 16-year-old brat of a sister, Even Gilly is depressed, I can tell. Remember when he used to come and visit us to have tea? Or when we used to have picnics in the afternoon? We used to run around chasing rodents in the garden? You ran around? We just watched you get dirty, actually. That is very true, you knitheads. Back then it used to be fun visiting the chateau. Nowadays we barely even see him. He just stays in his burrow all day, brooding. Is it something adults subject themselves to? Like a torture ritual? I really don't understand why two people who are clearly unhappy keep at it. Rosa did understand. At least, part of her did. She couldn't exactly explain how pain and love worked. All she knew was that it had something to do with an absurd, obsessive amount of hope. She felt Mother tugging at her mind. She loved Mother so much. Living with the PiBBiTs gave her ample comparison to her former life. She had finally accepted that Mother was cruel, and yet Mother still gave her love and kept her from wanting. Was that crazy? Perhaps it was the only love she needed. Perhaps it was what she deserved. Rosa shook the thoughts off her mind and just shrugged. I know you're just worried about your sister, Cath. But they will figure it out. Humans learn. Look at you, all profound. You read any good books lately? Just the riveting account of the Ugly Duckling and Baa Black Sheep. Ah, the classics. I don't know how you put up with it, though. I hate reading words. In order to write, I have to learn how to read first. I want to write. Why would you want to do a dastardly thing like writing? Why would you want to hit some crazy strings until your fingers bleed? The two friends laughed again. I want to remember things. I want to write them down. But most of all, I want to feel the way you do when you play the piano, Cath. Oh? The way you look when you play. You are passion and bliss in musical form. It feels like love, like magic. You inspired me to do something fulfilling and grand. Well, I'm sure you will. Hey, why not write a play one day? Oh, let's do it. You write an amazing play, and I'll provide the music. We'll travel around the country and perform. We'll make lots and lots of money and gain lots of followers. We shall be known as the PiBBiT Parade Caravan of Wonders. Parade? Are you sure? Puns are the best, trust me. That sounds darn batty, Cathy. Ugh. From this day forward, no one is allowed to call me Cathy ever again. The sound of a knock interrupted their giggles. Catherine, it's me. I need to discuss something important with you. Frustrated, Catherine pouted at the sound of her sister's voice. She turned back to her piano and began to pound a sarcastically happy tune. Rosa stood up to open the door. Hello, Rosa. Madam? She had seen little of the older PiBBiT sister recently, and it astounded her how old she had begun to look. Her once radiant face looked tired and harrowed, almost crone-like. Under her eyes hung huge bags. And yet she still looked quite dignified, full of pride and pomp. There was extra rouge on her skin, and her demeanor was elegant. It was as if pride was her only source of nourishment these days. Do you mind giving Catherine and me a moment of privacy? Rosa gave a small bow. Of course not, madam. Rosa gathered her nursery books and squeezed Catherine's shoulder before stepping out of the room. Rosa entered the quiet room of the library. She was about to approach the table when she noticed Gilly already occupying a seat. He was writing something in a book, somewhat immersed in the activity. Rosa stopped dead in her tracks. "Leave now while he's not looking, child. Just go in and ignore him, child." "Well, neither one of these is going to end well. If we're smart, we know that." Let's just ignore him." "Why are you so nervous anyway?" "Just ignore him. He doesn't seem to notice you." Unfortunately, Gilly lifted his head and saw her by the door. "Oh, hello, Rosa." Rosa took a step back. Maybe it was best to walk away as if this were a mistake. But wouldn't that be rude? He had already seen her after all. But she had never been alone with him. It was just too awkward. Well, why not just go in? It's going to be fine. The back and forth is totally me and my head. Oh my god, I feel it, Rosa. It's a mood. They had conversed normally before. Yet, that was because Catherine had been around to disperse of her awkwardness. Now I look like an idiot. Gilly watched her pace in front of the door in amusement. Rosa decided to go in. She had already embarrassed herself enough anyway. Me. There was little left to lose. Same. Besides, there was nowhere else to go in the big house. She had already gotten lost in its hallways, much to the annoyance of the Montreat. The library was her favorite place. If she stayed quiet in one corner, Rosa was sure they wouldn't bother each other. She took a seat at the farthest corner of the table and opened her book. Oh no, he's actually standing up and walking over? No, you horrible man, just sit over there while I sit over here. But Gilly was already beside her, peeking at what she was reading. A cold sweat spread on her scalp. Rosa, that book. Rosa began to chatter nervously. I know it's a children's book, sire. I'm teaching myself to read. I know most commoners don't really bother, but I want to learn, so please don't laugh or mock me. Gilly pointed to the book. It's upside down. Oh my god. Rosa stared at it. The ducks in the picture had their feet up in the air. Rosa squirmed, feeling the heat on her cheeks. She couldn't think of anything more embarrassing. I'm sorry. Gilly's face lost its cheer. What do you need my forgiveness for? Rosa looked up at Gilly. His eyes lacked the gentle glint they usually had. It was such a subtle change, something felt rather than observed. She thought he would reprimand her further. His face certainly looked like it. Instead, he sat down beside Rosa, drumming his fingers on his cheek while he watched her wordlessly. Well, weren't you going to read? What was wrong with him today? He didn't seem like himself. Had he eaten something bad? The aura he exuded was not his usual friendly warmth. Yet, it wasn't particularly wicked. The look on his face just read slightly and eternally miffed. Rosa turned the book upright and read the words out loud. Once, that is the U with the short sound. It's pronounced like this. Gilly made the sound, his face still in his lazy stare. Rosa nodded and continued. Her nerves were frazzled, but she was actually at ease in his presence. She felt like a child being taught by their parent. The parent was strict, but still caring. And the child was jumpy, but eager to learn and please. Most of all, he would not hurt her for her mistakes. Rosa was almost sure. There lived? The past tense of live. Why do we change it? It is a rule of grammar that... Grammar? Gilly narrowed his eyes at her. Do you even know your alphabet? Rosa shook her head. You should start there. Gilly rose from his chair and disappeared amongst the shelves. He left behind an old thick book covered in green felt. This was what he had been writing in earlier. It looked tattered and worn, pages laid flat on its side so the book didn't close properly. Rosa reached out to peek at the cover when, "You are not to touch that." Rosa's whole body froze at the sound of Gilly's warning. His stare followed her even as she whispered numerous apologies under her breath. "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." Gilly just rolled his eyes. "You're always seeking forgiveness for everything." "Am I? I'm sorry." Ooh, getting hostile now. His hand struck the table in front of Rosa. In the quiet library, the sound rang uncomfortably in her ear. When she looked up, his face was looming severely above hers. He moved closer to her, his eyes fixed on her intensely. Rosa's mouth hung open. She struggled to say something, but her wits were like burning ends of a matchstick. Before she could compose herself, she felt Gilly's hand lift her chin. Rosa's heart thumped loudly inside her chest. "Please don't, not you two." She felt his breath on her face, and her heart sank into despair. Mother's voice resounded in her head. "In the end, they're all the same. He is like everyone else." She shut her eye and prepared herself for the worst, like she always did when... Then she felt her face being turned from side to side. She opened her eye to see Gilly studying her like a textbook. "You're a fairly attractive girl. Why do you carry yourself as if it is a slight?" He lifted the hair that hid her damaged eye. Rosa clenched her teeth. "Is it because you were hurt before?" He said it so matter-of-factly, like he was stating that the sky was blue. Rosa recoiled from his touch. "No, I did that to myself. I wasn't talking about your eye." He placed a book on the table. It was a thin pamphlet filled with letters. There were lines of the book that instructed the user to trace the letters with their quill. Rosa wanted to focus on it, but she could feel the truth in the Marquis's words stinging her. "It was the way you went limp when I touched you. Next time, I advise you to fight back." "Next time? Fool, keep your hands to yourself." "If you don't want to be touched, then you don't have to be. Do you understand this?" I mean, he is giving her a good lesson, but still, next time. Ugh. "But I am weak." "Says who?" His eyes were humorless. "The world cares not for people who think of themselves as victims, Rosa. If you need power, then be powerful. To have it, it is necessary to crush things along the way." Rosa flinched under the weight of his stare. She realized that the polite and courteous Gilly was but a facet. It was still him, but it was nothing but an oil portrait, an artwork of his devising. Synthetic, aloof, and irrelevant, it couldn't capture his essence in a few human strokes. Suddenly, Rosa realized he was powerful. "Who are you?" She caught herself before saying it aloud. "You're not Gilly." And yet, he spoke to her as if he knew what it was like to hurt and to fear. If you don't start acting like you own yourself, then people will not hesitate to take everything. He laid out the rest of the books he had brought out. One was an activity book for children. It had a picture of a child holding an apple with an arrow stuck in it. Another was a book of limericks. The other two were thicker books that intimidated her. She would come to know them as Hamlet and Paradise Lost. Those are two really good books. But the one that caught her eye was an ornately designed book. It had a beautiful red jacket with delicate gold trimmings lining the corners. The gods and goddesses of Roman mythology. This would be her favorite book, her treasure, and she knew it like love at first sight. "These books are yours. Take them with you. Read the thin ones first, and then gradually build your vocabulary with the thicker ones." Rosa ran her hands over the skin of the red book. She opened the cover gingerly, as if carefully unwrapping a present. Thank you. No thanks needed. I simply showed you some books from a portion of the library you were unaware of. You are still so generous, even if you are like this. Like what? That? What? Somewhat irritable? Gilly didn't reply, leaving an awkward silence lingering between them. Then he gave a giant laugh that made Rosa jump out of her skin. I do look damn irritable, don't I? Why? Is it because of Emily? Gilly's eyes drifted away. No. I've always been. You just pointed it out. But you're not usually like this, especially with Catherine and the townspeople. I find it easy to adapt to people, especially the ones I like. Gilly looked at Rosa as if he had just become aware of her presence. Makes me wonder why I'm so stern with you. I'm sorry. Rosa shook her head. I somehow prefer this side of you. Gilly cocked his head to the side. He brought out the green book that Rosa noticed earlier. This is called a journal. When you learn to write, start one. What is it? Something you can use to remember yourself when you've forgotten. Does it work? It used to. Nowadays, not anymore. Oh. The act itself is the only thing I remember. Now, let's start with your vows. Yo, what?